please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Trading Hour. I'm Prashant Nair. With me is my colleague Ekta Batra. And the markets are up 33 points, which means they've given up quite a bit from the day's high. We were up 75 points, so we are 40 off the highs. News at the bottom of the screen, the special fraud investigation office has summoned ICICI Bank's Chanda Kochhar and Axis Bank's MD Shikha Sharma for questioning. This is news which is coming in right now from our sister network, CNN News 18. We'll get you more details on this in just a bit. The stocks have seen a bit of a slump as the news has come through. ICICI actually was trading higher. It was at about 309 odd rupees or so. It's lost about 4-5 rupees from there. And the same is true for Axis Bank as well, which has again seen a bit of a slump coming through. But that's the only news flash so far which is coming through. And we'll wait for more details before making any conclusions whatsoever. But let's just stick with facts. 525.7 and you can see that slump coming through in Axis as well. And I think the slump there is a little sharper than ICICI. But I think more important will be to what degree would this... I mean, if we don't know what is, this is in regards with the PNB fraud case, that much we know. But beyond that, there's not very much to go on about. So we'll wait for more details from our CNN News 18 colleagues. But back to the market, we're up 32 points, which means we're off 40 points from the highs, as we said. The Nifty is at about 10,391. Ekta, morning.
Hi Prashant, and the PSU Bank Index is still sluggish, so that one is down around 0.3% at this point in time. And besides that, it is just the Nifty auto space which is seeing some amount of sluggishness if you're talking about a particular sectoral loser. But otherwise, it seems as though it's okay for the markets. Like you mentioned, we're off the day, high point of the day. So we've been sustaining at that level of around 10,400 and we've slipped below that at currently 10,392. But otherwise, in terms of stocks, we have a lot of the metal stocks which are gaining and bouncing back today. And besides that, other stocks such as Sun Pharmaceuticals, PNB, as well as the likes of Balrampur Chini continue to be in focus. Sudarshan Sukhani joins in to discuss the technicals of the market now. Sudarshan, hi, morning, over to you. So what is it on the Nifty strategy plus as well as stocks?
Yeah, good morning again. Well, the strategy on the Nifty is to go and buy the Nifty and also buy the CNXIT. With all the volatility since early morning, we have given up gains, but we are still higher than yesterday. All of this, the trade is still to be long in both these indices, Nifty and CNXIT. And for the Nifty, just keep a stop somewhere around 340, 10,340. But I expect this volatility to subside during the day and for markets to move higher by the time we close.
So you could go long here on the Nifty?
Yes, you could go long in the Nifty. Yeah, yes, you could.
Right. But this would be short-lived, or you think this will build on a little bit from here?
Oh, I wouldn't know, but in the sense that the trade starts for the day only. This is an intraday trade.
Okay.
Only if the Nifty closes strong at the highs, we will carry it, otherwise we won't carry. But for the day, we are long.
Your stocks, Sudarshan?
Well, the theme is that we should be on the buy side today. Perhaps the early morning volatility, as I said, will wither away. So Ashok Leyland, it's an outperformer. That's a buying opportunity. Bata India, where a fairly bullish head and shoulder is now in place, a base has been built. That's a buy. And IndusInd Bank is a buy. IndusInd Bank, in spite of the fact that the Bank Nifty has fallen and given up its gains, I think IndusInd Bank should hold on its own. So 3 stocks, all for buying.
Okay. There's some news on Axis and ICICI Bank currently, but wanted a technical check on it. You mentioned IndusInd, which is from the private banking space, but what about these two, ICICI and Axis?
I think this news will, the impact of the news will go away in a few minutes or maybe half an hour. And there is a sense that these stocks should bounce for the day from current levels. But I just chose IndusInd as an outperformer, but private sector banks should be in good shape for the day.
Okay, well, we have a couple of Twitter queries now, Sudarshan, so let's get going. First one is from Manoj, 1,000 shares of Tata Motors at 368, wants to know your view on the stock.
But I think you should sell it. Tata Motors is falling every day. Now there will be relief rallies, that's a different issue. But there is no uptrend in it. It's in a downtrend. Far better to go and buy Maruti or even Ashok Leyland in the commercial vehicles. But for this one, just sell this.
We have another one. Vadi Patel has 500 shares of REC and she's paid 150 rupees. She also has 800 shares of Nalco. The cost is 74 rupees. Wants to know the view on both these names. Sudarshan.
Unfortunately, I would suggest that she should sell both. Sell REC, the stock is in a downtrend. See how the markets were going up and REC was coming down. We should not do this kind of bottom fishing. Sell Nalco, it's the weakest of all metal stocks. So there's no need for you to hold on to it. Vedant is a much better option. So my suggestion is sell both.
Okay, all right, fair enough, Sudarshan. We're going to let you go on that note. Thanks very much for joining in. Well, some background on ICICI Bank. Remember that they had come out with, information saying that they have no exposure to the Nirav Modi group of companies, but they have given working capital loans along with the consortium to Gitanjali Group, and they had no LOUs which were issued to both the companies. So that's important, or to put it into perspective in terms of the context of the news that you're seeing on your screen. We'll try and get you more details on Axis Bank and what they've said with regards to the PNB fraud as well. But separately, do remember that you can always tweet your questions to us at CNBC TV18 News, at CNBC TV18 Live with the hashtag AskCNBCTV18, and our technical experts will be here to be advising you directly on your investments.
All right, on the derivative side, we have Gaurav Bissa now joining in. He's with LKP. Gaurav, good morning. What would you be trading? What would your calls be?
Good morning. My first recommendation would be on MCX. We have seen the stock has been quite stable even when Nifty was seeing a lot of pressure. It has been seeing mild additions happening on a day-to-day basis as far as long positions are concerned. It has immediate addition of 780. It's just hovering around those marks. One can buy about 780, have a stop loss of 770 on the upside. Targets of 805 can be seen for next 2 or 3 days. Secondly, buy on Godrej Industries. This is another name having an interesting pattern wherein it's been trading in a range 540, 550. That has been the range. It's now trading above the range today. 2% over additions have been seen so far, getting built in the name. One can use stop loss of 544 on the upside. Targets of 565 can be seen. And final recommendation would be sell on Bata. There are a couple of reasons for that. One, on the upside, there has been a lot of unwinding happening at 730 zone. We are yet to see significant short positions, and that is the reason why the stock has not been falling massively. But yes, we are seeing some unwinding happening at higher levels. On a technical part, it's taking resistance exactly from the falling trend line. So there's a possibility it may slip towards the level of 705. One can have a stop of 735 and be short in the name.
Well, gotten back to 10,400 for the Nifty, so that's where we're currently at. President Trump's decision to impose tariffs on steel and aluminium imports has sparked fears of a harmful global trade war. Here is, let's listen in to Kenneth Rogoff in an exclusive conversation with CNBC on what he makes of the impact on the US economy, and we'll be back with commodity strategies.
I tend to think we will see a version of this tariff, but I'm not sure that there's more to follow. He has to do it for his base. And let's not forget, if Bernie Sanders were president and possibly the next if there's a Democratic American president, they're going to want a very similar thing. Their base is screaming for it. So we're going to get it, but I don't necessarily think it's going to turn into a trade war. It's quantitatively not that big in the United States. The tariff number is going to have a tiny, tiny effect on inflation because it's very small. The impact on the U.S. economy is small. What is going to have an impact is that global growth is returning, unemployment's very low, and of course we have a pretty big fiscal stimulus in the U.S. I don't necessarily know that we're going to have inflation coming back in a big way, but I do think it's going to climb north of 2%. And possibly even get to 3% at some point within the next 12 or 18 months. The Fed will raise interest rates, but they're very cautious about going too fast because they don't know what they're going to do if there's a recession. So I do see inflation going up, and that's going to create some volatility. I don't see it skyrocketing.
Okay, well, time now for some commodity strategies. Kunal Shah is here with us to talk about that from Nirmal Bang Commodities. Kunal, over to you then. You have a couple of strategies across commodities, from crude up to even metals.
Yes, we are of the view that the dollar should weaken from here, and because of that, gold and silver prices are likely to do well. So one can go long in gold futures at 30,350 for the upside target of 30,600 to 30,650. Another strategy we have is in oil. The rising oil production should cap prices. So 4,100 is a good level to go short in the March contract for the downside target of 4,010, and stop loss should be placed at 4,150. And apart from that, we feel that little contra strategy, but we feel that copper prices can go down. 450, 350 good levels to go short for the downside target of 447, and expect put a stop loss to the strategy at 456.
Kunal, thanks very much. Appreciate you joining in with these trades. You know, I just want to highlight a couple of stocks, and this is essentially in the futures and options segment. Look at something like a Balrampur Chini. It's down about 4%. You could, but you know, you could look at it in the cash segment as well. There's some news on Karthi Chidambaram. He'd moved the Supreme Court for quashing of the ED summons, and the Supreme Court has refused interim relief to Karthi Chidambaram. That is what is coming in right now. So they were supposed to hear the matter today, and now, having heard the matter, the Supreme Court has not provided any relief to Karthi Chidambaram. We'll have our colleague Ashmi join us with more details in just a bit. But for now, I mean, you know, the entire sugar pack is under pressure. Balrampur, Dhampur, Dwarikesh, pretty much all these stocks at 52-week lows. I mean, what a turn it has been for these stocks from making new highs to basically going into a slump. ISMA, the industry body, the sugar industry body, says that they have revised production targets for the current year to 26.1 million tons from their earlier projections of 25.1 million tons. But they may have to revise the production expectation further higher in a board meet tomorrow. Listen in. We spoke with the ISMA representative earlier in the day.
See, the full year estimates, we will be actually visiting the whole thing tomorrow in our board meeting. So I don't have an official number there. Yes, we did revise our estimate on the 17th of January to 261 lakh tons. But from that date onwards, we are seeing that the yields in Maharashtra and North Karnataka are giving us real surprises. And the yields per hectare there are probably coming out to the best or the highest ever probably in the history. And that is why we will have to revise our production estimates tomorrow in our board meeting.
Okay, well, that's on sugar stocks. But just to give you a sense in terms of what's happening with regards to specific stocks, at this point, it seems to be quite a mixed session, you'd have to say, for a couple of stocks. So, for example, Techem, which has actually been outperforming, is up around 24% this year itself, is seeing some amount of come off. So, that stock is down 0.8%. It was up yesterday as well. And we have even something like Sun Pharmaceuticals, which has moved to the low point of the day. That stock down around 1%. But in important news, which is flashing on your screen, the Supreme Court has refused interim relief to Karthi Chidambaram. Ashmit Kumar is here on the phone line to tell us more. Ashmit, over to you.
Yeah, so what we been arrested by the CBI and under the CBI, the ED importantly had issued summons to Karthi Chidambaram as well, alleging violations under the PMLA or the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Now, what's interesting is that while Karthi Chidambaram continues to be in the CBI custody, his counsel had moved the apex court, whereby they had raised concerns about whether or not due procedure had been followed, raising questions of law here, essentially. And on account of that, importantly, the key takeaway that they had been seeking is some interim relief by way of quashing of those ED summons. Now, what's interesting is that while the Supreme Court has taken cognizance of the question, of the legal question that has been raised by Karthi Chidambaram's counsel, they have, however, refused to grant any interim relief at this stage. They have refused to squash those ED summons. Those ED summons continue to survive. What's also interesting is that let's keep in mind that these proceedings are independent of the CBI case that will come up later today at 12:30 p.m. before the trial court. That's where, importantly, the Additional Solicitor General, who's also appearing for the CBI at the trial court, clarified that when the case comes up later today, they will be seeking an extension of the police custody to further interrogate, for further custodial interrogation of Karti Chidambaram. So that's perhaps a hint of sign of things to come. But as of now, the Supreme Court refusing interim relief, and all eyes now on the trial court as it takes up the CBI case for further custody.
Ashmit, thanks very much for that right now, and we'll come back to you for more. The market on the Nifty is up 36, 37 points, which means it's picked up a little bit of pace. It had sold off to being up just 30 points from being up 75 at open. Markets up 35 points on the Nifty, and one stock which actually has seen a fair bit of up and down has been Sun Pharma. You know, I just pull up the intraday of Sun. The high was 500 and... the high today was 563. It's at about 540. It's a steep climb down, about a 20 rupee climb down on Sun that we've seen. The high essentially was the opening high. From there it has come down continuously, and as we speak, we are basically at almost the day's lowest point. The news, of course, is the details of the 3 observations issued to the Halol facility having become known. Ekta, what is the interpretation really of the 3 observations?
Well, you know, the observations themselves, I'll just take you through that, is basically related to aseptic processing as well as written procedures. Now, what that means in terms of the layman interpretation is probably that the first observation that they received, which is separate or defined areas to prevent contamination or mix-ups, are deficient regarding operations related to aseptic processing of drug products, is probably something that is going to take some time for them to remediate. That's basically what analysts are talking about, or maybe some industry people are talking about, that yes, it will be remediated, but you're talking about a timeline of maybe a few months, maybe 3 to 4 months, or maybe even 2 quarters before you can probably get it completely remediated. And the next 2 observations that they received, which is basically written procedures for cleaning and maintenance, fail to include description in sufficient detail. Written procedures are lacking for sampling, testing, approval, rejection of drug product containers and closures, is relatively simple, and that should be something that could be probably solved much more easily. So that's exactly why you're seeing the street split down the middle when it comes to Sun Pharmaceuticals. That yes, while these observations look okay in terms of the fact that they are much better than what they had received before. Remember that the first time they had received over 20 observations, which resulted in a warning letter. The second inspection, the re-inspection, had resulted in 9 observations, and now you're down to 3 observations. So in that context, it's better. But if you're talking about remediating it, it's probably going to take some time, and you can't say it's a done deal unless the USFDA gives you an approval from the plant, 1, or 2, gives you an EIR, which is basically with no red flags in it. So you have to wait for that evidence from the USFDA before you jump to a conclusion that everything is okay.
Okay, so that is a comprehensive take on Sun. Remember, in the last episode of Market Correction, Sun had sold off to about 510 odd, so it's still about 5% from there. And it's basically about 100 odd rupees from the lows that we got to on Sun. The recent lows that we got to, not the recent, but the last couple of years low. We have now NMDC, which is in focus. Let's put the stock up. I think it did correct, the stock corrected on the back of price correction, which was effected, actually towards the end of last week. The stock's at about 124.6 or so at this point. So iron ore fine prices were cut by 3%. For lumps, the cut was about 4% or so. Remember, they've been able to increase prices for a number of months, and this is the first cut after all of those increases. We spoke with TRK Rao, Director Commercial at NMDC, and these are his comments. Let's listen in.
The correction was necessary primarily because we wanted to improve our volumes. We had a very good volume growth till Q2, and in Q3, because of a major accident, there has been a decline in volumes. So in Q4, we wanted to make up the volumes and better our last year sales. It was primarily meant to increase the volumes. We had to undertake the slight correction. So in last Q4, we did around 9.8 million. Now if we cross about 10.5 million in this quarter, and we should be able to better our last year sales.